We're good.
Oh, okay.
Dun, dun, dun,
No,
Game
that
has
was great.
So I am recording for us, and I believe I'm pushing to YouTube.
All right.
Okay.
So I'll clear this out of the way. The light is green, the trap is clean.
Okay, well, welcome to Dynasty Self Help, a podcast helping you self actualize in the hobby of Dynasty Fantasy Football. A show where I shouldn't have too many beers before saying self actualized in the hobby of Dynasty Fantasy Football. I'm Kyle LaPointe, downloading my thoughts to you from Fort Worth, Texas, and joining us from State College, Pennsylvania is my co host, Jeremy Schwob. How are you now?
I am doing all right. I am not in state college.
Okay, that's pretty cool, though. Today, we're going to tell you what we told you as we dive into a bit of dynasty depression as it relates to specific players and their life choices. Jeremy, I noticed that there's someone else on the couch with me today. Can you introduce me?
I can, in fact. So we have the man himself, Shane. I don't know what you're going by now on Twitter, Shane, but previously, what Shane is the worst.
Yes.
The king of the Johns. I don't know. It's been just about everything, I think. But we are so happy to have you. One of the hosts or co-hosts, I guess, of Dynasty Trades HQ. One of the best ones out there. Thanks for joining us. We're happy to have you.
Oh, well, hi. I'm happy to be here. There's never a such thing as too much therapy, as I've learned. It's good to talk through your problems, I found, because, like Dr. Melfi said, that depression is just rage turned inward. I think it was her name, right, on The Sopranos, Dr. Melfi? You guys are a little young. Kyle looks old as dirt like me.
Well, that's what the gray beard does for you.
Yeah. But I think that's what she said. And look, Sonny, if I've learned anything, it's listen to what TV therapists tell me. So she's right. So thank you for having me. And it's been at Shane is the worst for, I don't know, like 5 months now. I think we're just going to stick with that. Although I do like to change my little namey thing. I don't even know what you call the things on Twitter. Like I just change stuff, whatever, in my bio. And then everyone yells at me. They're like, why is it so long? That's all I can see is this long speech in there.
I think it's name and handle, but I like thingy, and I think there can be some steam behind that.
See if we can convince Twitter to actually change that to thingy.
Yeah,
Right,
I think.
Put that on your list.
Yeah. Write that down.
How did you become the king of the Johns when that was?
I self-proclaimed that. So I found that there was there was a deficiency or a lack of anyone claiming fiefdom over the Johns, and felt that I could fill that void. Because is anyone listening to this show?
Dr. Johnette. It's a John.
It's a noun. It's like Steve is John. This is a John. This restaurant is the name is a John. You're a John.
What show is that from?
It's from Creed, the movie.
Oh, that's right, Tessa. Oh my God,
right.
Tessa is I'm a fan of that young woman, and she portrayed Philadelphia in a manner that was way more. She's great. She's great.
They redid that movie really well too. The Creed and adding on to the Rocky movies, it was pretty awesome.
Dude, it was the perfect. I mean, they had to kind of retcon the fact that Rocky has a son. Like They kind of had to all right, let's just ignore this because this hasn't worked in any of the other stories. You know what I mean? And I think they did a great job of going, okay, Rocky needs a son. You know what I mean? But his son sucks. We've established that throughout the other 87 Rockies. So we need to find a way to get another someone. It could be a son figure to him, and Rocky could be a father figure to him. Yeah, man, they pulled it off, and Michael Jordan was amazing in that movie, and repped Philly. They repped North Philly really well. It was a really great movie. Not just because it was a Philly movie, because there's been some movies that took place in Philly, and I'm like, that's trash.
All right, so we a Sunny fan. It's Always Sunny. Good one, bad one.
Yeah, so I love It's Always Sunny. I'm not gonna lie, I did give up on it. Stopped watching it I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, and then I don't know how I saw on Twitter or wherever maybe 7 months ago the scene when Mac came out to his father. And first I read about it and I'm like, dude, have you guys watched It's Always Sunny? Like, are you sure you're describing the right show? So I'm like, all right, let me watch this scene, right? And after watching that scene and going, holy shit, like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia just made one of the most beautiful scenes that I've ever seen on television. Like just art, just pure art. I was like, I have to see how they got to that point. You know what I mean? Like I owe them that. And then I started watching it again. And now, since I've become a full-on cord cutter, I mean, they're on Vice and on Hulu. So I watch it a lot and it's a great show. And again, there's been some shows in Philly that just really weren't good, but no, It's Always Sunny is probably one of the smartest and funniest shows there is.
I can't remember where it was when maybe I stopped subscribing to Hulu because we cut the cord like 12, 13 years ago. So that's the only way I get content. But sometimes I pay for things, sometimes I don't. And I don't remember where I stopped. So I just went back to like season 4 about 3 weeks ago, and I just started watching it again. I'm like, I barely remember any of this anyway, so it's pretty good. I know I've seen some of it, but man, it's a funny show. Even those old ones, it's funny.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that you almost forget how smart it is because you watch it the first time and you're like, this is kind of crude. But then you watch it again as you're a little older and you're like, holy shit, this is a lot smarter and subversive, than I realized at the time. Like watching it again, it's not like Arrested Development. Like when you were watching Arrested Development at the time, you went, oh, this is next level. This isn't like anyone's going to get this. Because, there's people that you could watch with that show that would sit next to you and wouldn't laugh once and just be like, that is one of the worst shows I've ever seen. And you're like, well, you're an idiot. And I need you in my life. But Sunny, it pulls it off in a way that, even stupid people can enjoy the show. And if you're intelligent, you can enjoy it even more because it's just so funny on so many levels. And I keep accidentally watching the same episode when Dennis and Dee accidentally become crack addicts when they
go that's the best.
Which
that is the best.
I'll
take one episode. Crack, please.
Yeah, if you haven't watched those things, though, do that.
All right, we've digressed into TV, which probably wasn't our intent. I don't know.
I mean, listen, anyone that's heard me on a podcast before, even my own, knows that, look, it's fantasy football related. Definitely is. That's where, but I definitely am a living, walking stream of consciousness. And if you don't rein me in, we'll make you wander along whatever path I decide to go on.
I think you're on the right show, sir.
Yes, I got help to send the rails in 2 different directions.
But this is where we explore that, and so we do try and alter kind of a topic that fits our guest. And Kyle was alluding to dynasty depression, which is a term that we coined, which is kind of having a negative experience with a player or finding some kind of negative trait about them, either on the field or personally, and then that kind of consuming the whole perspective of that player and really overtaking him, and then you end up not drafting him or not wanting him on your team or just kind of rooting against him. So we'll talk about kind of how those personal aspects of players, certainly on the negative side, whether it be, a Kareem Hunt or a Tyreek Hill or someone like that, or most recently, with you active on Twitter against Sean Jackson's comments, can pull any of that in. But, this can also work in the opposite direction where, players may do some, great advocacy work, be involved with charities. There's just like out there guys like Sammy Watkins who believes that like aliens are within him or something like that.
He's a
I
lizard.
don't even know. But these personal aspects of players can then kind of color our perception of what their numbers may show, or whether we're going to click draft on them or not. And we'll dig into that, and then we have a little segment where Kyle slides over and we call it the hot cushion and ask you some difficult questions, and then we'll do a specific exercise for you at the end and wrap from there. How's that sound?
Okay. I truly appreciate you giving me this little agenda because it's needed. And I'm going to forget it as soon as, matter of fact, I completely forgot it already. But I thank you for the agenda.
There's no quiz on the agenda, so we'll still keep show. But yeah, it reminds, not only you on what to do, but ourselves, and kind of gives a little preview to the listener about what to expect. So why don't we kind of jump right in? And before we get to our topic, this is the Dynasty Self Help Podcast, where we really hope to help not only listeners improve their dynasty game, but help you kind of learn more about yourself, Shane. So if there's one thing that you say you need the most help with, either personally or in a dynasty context, what can we help you with today?
Well, apparently, if you could teach me how to hit mute and unmute, that'd be fucking gold. Because it never fails. Every show I go on, first thing I do is, where's the mute button? Because I'm going to be doing something else during the show. Not that I'm not listening. It's just, I have like ADD. Let's stick with the topic. I love the topic. I have issues with, I think most of us do, giving up on players, or let's say I draft a guy as a wide receiver 1 and he doesn't produce as a wide receiver 1. Say he produces as a wide receiver 2. All of a sudden, and I know a lot of people do this, we tend to treat them like they're a complete bust. Like, well, they're worthless because they didn't give me those wide receiver 1 weeks. Where you should really be looking at it like, well, they still gave me wide receiver 2 weeks, though. It's one thing if you draft a guy as a wide receiver 1, trade for him as your wide receiver 1, and then he's putting up wide receiver 4 weeks like Samuel Watkins. And then going out there talking about that he's part of the Illuminati. Then I would say, you know what? I'm probably not going to draft you. I think it's time to move on. But if, say you're drafting a guy, I'm just trying to think of someone, Brandon Cooks. Say you draft Brandon Cooks and you're hoping for wide receiver 1 numbers. And, instead he gives you wide receiver 2 numbers, but he also gives you those boom wide receiver 1 weeks. It feels like we discount a lot of players because, they just don't live up to what we had hoped they would be. So I know I do have that problem. I'm working on it, but I'm hoping you guys will work with me to get better at that. And also, I appreciate you having Tyler on the week before me, because now I'm going to look even better in comparison. So I really appreciate that, guys.
We did it just for you.
Yeah, and this will actually drop just after Joe Pizzapia comes on with us, which you've had him on, I believe, a couple of times on your show. I listen to your show pretty much regularly. It's a great one, Dynasty Trades HQ.
Yeah, we just had him on 2 out of the last 5 weeks because we had him on the one time, and then Joe's got horrible what do you call that? Reception? It's not reception. Wi-Fi. There we go. Because it's 2020. He's got horrible Wi-Fi or something going on in Jersey. Because I know in a couple different shows he was on, they were mentioning that his Wi-Fi was a little spotty. So we had him on the 1 week. It was real spotty, and we were like, dude, we want to get you back on when you can. Because we ended up talking to him about, and it was probably my fault, about everything but fantasy football the first show. So we're like, we probably need to get you back on.
Yeah, I listened to both of them. They were great. He was phenomenal on our show. He's a just professional, man. He is amazing. So I like what you were talking about there, and you brought up a couple of things, right? Like one of the things you're talking about is, what if you have a player who you're drafting as wide receiver 1, but he doesn't give you enough wide receiver 1 weeks, but he gives you every week at wide receiver 2, so that some things people are looking for, they want to have that guy that's going to win them some weeks, or maybe the opposite of that you have that guy that may end up kind of averaging, like your Amari Cooper, averages a wide receiver 1, but it's only over the course of maybe 7 or 8 weeks. And so people get down on him because those other 7 or 8 weeks, he wasn't good enough to be the wide receiver 1. And why did I draft the guy? I see a lot more of that type of depression afterwards. With the guy that, even though he spotted up when you needed him, sometimes he just didn't spot up enough, and people are looking for the consistent wide receiver 1, which is maybe 4 guys each year.
Michael Thomas.
Right.
One.
So
it's Michael Thomas last year had 0 wide receiver 1 overall weeks, and yet still dominated everyone.
Just people, and I don't know what this is. We'll just call this forgetfulness. I don't think it's an actual mental disorder, at least not one that I've been diagnosed with yet, and I've got a few of them. So
Unless you forgot it, but
yeah, well, maybe. Oh my God, that's terrible. Devontae Adams did the same thing, every year of his career, except for his first 2 years when we were ready to call him a bust. Devontae Adams is another guy. He just constantly puts up wide receiver 1 weeks. He doesn't, for whatever reason, seem to be able to get through a full season, which I don't blame him for, because if we recall one of those seasons, he was freaking absolutely destroyed twice on concussions, on basically cheap shots, which is, not really something I think you could call being injury prone. But yeah, he's another guy that he puts up those numbers, and people seem to forget that. I don't know why. I think he's the same age as Michael Thomas too, if not younger.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel the need to look that up because I'm not on my show. So I figure you guys will quality control it.
No, we won't.
Nah, good enough.
No, that's not our shtick. We don't worry about the players so much, more the content of the player, right? More the narrative behind that player or the bias around that player. And so, yeah, that's a great example. Somebody like Devontae Adams, who some people think, oh, he's the best thing in the world because he scored so many points on so many weeks. And then there's other people who only remember that season where he had 2 concussions and they don't even want any piece of him. So,
right.
Those types of things, that's kind of what we like to talk about. We want to examine that, see where you're weak or strong as an owner, and help you, bolster up some of the weaknesses and maybe play some of those strengths a bit.
Right. Well, I appreciate that.
And I think that there's another kind of psychological component about it being boring to hype the kind of solidified guys up top. Like, who hypes Michael Thomas? Who writes pieces about Michael Thomas and how you need to get him? Who's going to read that? First of all, it's like, okay, like I can read from the title that, and I agree with you. Moving on, it's like everybody wants to hype Deontay Johnson and everybody that has a chance to bust and can be acquirable, which I think is probably more actionable information, but it kind of degrades in our mind that Michael Thomas is so good and that Devontae Adams is so good, and that we're looking for kind of flaws in those guys up top, and then we're looking for just the highlights of the guys that are beneath them trying to get up there. And I think that that's kind of a backwards process.
So I like that idea, and I think we should start releasing some articles that say, we have the next greatest running back. Come and click our link, and we'll tell you who the next one is. And he's like, Saquon Barkley. He's really good, man. I mean, you're going to love this guy.
Yeah, I think part of that has to do with the fact that, like you said, it is boring. And people as writers, you know how it is. You want to be challenged. You do. And I think it's the same thing as a reader. Like, well, yeah, I know Saquon Barkley's fucking great. Like, right. Duh. Like, that's not fun. That's not exciting. Like, it's going to be a terrible analogy, and I'll just do it anyway because I'm a terrible human. But it's like when you're married in a loveless marriage, kind of like, your wife could be a smoke show, but you see her every day. Mm-hmm. So she's just kind of your wife. You know what I mean? And sometimes you don't realize, like, oh shit, she's like gorgeous, you know what I mean? But then you'll go to the coffee store and you'll see some girl who's not nearly as beautiful as your wife, but for whatever reason, you don't see her every day. So that beauty catches your eye, and vice versa. Like, as men too, like, maybe women think men are attractive. I don't know. Most of us aren't. So maybe they do, maybe they don't. Or if maybe a man finds another man attractive, I don't really give a shit, whatever you're into, as long as you're happy. As long as you're consenting adults, that's all I ask. That's all I care about.
That is the official.
I have no idea what we're talking about now, and I apologize.
As long as you're a consenting adult, approved by the podcast.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's kind of the opposite of what happened to poor Tyler on my couch here, as you last listened to.
Yeah, Tyler was good. I hate complimenting him in any way, but that was a good episode. I was a little disappointed. Like, I was kind of hoping he would suck. I know that's like mean for you guys, but I was like, fuck. Now I have to kind of be good, because
then you could have been the redeemer for the show. Yeah, the next time and save us.
Oh well, Tyler usually sucks though. I think this was just an anomaly. I'll say it was you guys that made him good.
We bolstered him up. Well, it was fun, man. We talked about Joe P the other or just a few minutes ago, and he's in my GI Joe division of SFBX, and we have just a killer draft, killer division, and it was fun to get on there and do a show with somebody that was on a division, and drafting with it. Of course, he didn't draft, Saquon Matt Barkley in the first round like some people, but he had a pretty good draft. So are you going to really try to get Matt? Like, you're going to stick with Matt Barkley? That's your shtick, or are you going to have?
No. Me and Keaton Denley, the other guy that drafted him, and I'm sure everybody's heard. If not, just fucking DM me. I'll tell you why I drafted him. But it's for charity. Just fuck it. If we make the playoffs, we're hoping people will match a pledge to give to a charity of our choice. And Keaton's already pledged to match mine. I've pledged to match his, and we got a couple other people that promised to do so. So if you'd like to give money to charity, or if you just want to look like you'll give money to charity but don't think you'll actually have to end up doing it because you think our team suck, that's fine too.
I saw Keaton's team. I think it looks pretty strong, actually.
Yeah, the rest of your team was good.
So no, not according to our buddy Matt Spencer. He did projections, and I am was there 1,400 teams, right?
Yeah, but his projections were wrong.
Oh, I need to check this because I was 1,393 on his projections.
Well, there was one particular stat that he ran wrong. So quarterbacks got a bonus in his scoring. And, because somebody else was posting, I was like, well, I have an average of this, and he's got me at like 10 points higher, that's nice of him and all, but I don't think that's going to happen. And then afterwards, he later on commented back and said, yeah, I did this thing wrong on the quarterback. So they were getting they were getting 0.5 points per first down instead of 0.1, which I think that's what it was. And that's a pretty big deal. So it was one of those that if you have a higher ranked quarterback, you were probably going to be vaulted up. But somebody who took maybe, Matt Barkley in the first round probably fell down a few tiers more than they should have.
Oh, no, I definitely climbed the ranks. I now have as opposed to the 7th worst roster, according to him, I have the 8th worst roster.
Yeah. People kept drafting and got worse. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Well, look, I never do. Thank you. I'm a visionary. I go high upside, you know what I mean? Like, to me, ceiling is all that matters. Other people that are smarter than me have written about how downside is a falsity, it's a falsehood. It's just a fear tactic. It's a fear mongering tactic. I don't know if they use those words, but that's what I look at it as every player has a floor of 0, but not every player has a ceiling to win you a week. And that's, when I drafted in Scott Fishbowl outside of Matt Barkley, I tried to draft guys that I think can win me a week. Although
Barkley about that downside, Barkley may have upside.
Yeah, but but just back to your original point, because again, meandering. He's cut. Keaton asked me. He's like, "Dude, do I need to keep this guy all year?" I was like, "Oh no, cut him as soon as we're allowed to do waivers." Like, we took the bullet. You know what I mean? Drafted him in the first round. I think giving up, basically not having a first round draft pick was that was enough.
Right. Well, and I like what you're saying there with the ceiling analogy. You got a player with a lot of ceiling, and it reminds me of Terrell Owens and his popcorn. So, he's also old, so he might be one of those like popcorn ceilings, because those are pretty old. I don't know if you've seen the popcorn ceilings, but that kind of reminds me of Terrell Owens.
So those aren't cool anymore, huh?
Oh, no, I don't think so. I've got some in my house because it was made in fact, this room right here, because it was made in the 40s. So yeah, we got an old house.
I feel like those were all the rage in like the early 2000s. Everybody's getting popcorn ceilings, and you're just like, anytime anyone goes, "I'm getting a new ceiling," I have a popcorn. Oh, Jesus Christ, come on, everybody.
All right, so there was another player that I think is somebody that kind of resonates in this situation, and I think it's a good one to talk about, and that's like Deshaun Jackson comes out and says something outrageously stupid, and nobody can get behind what he said. And I like that people.
Unfortunately, unfortunately on Twitter, a lot of people did get behind what he said, and on his own team and throughout the rest of media and sports. But whatever.
So obviously that changed your perspective of Deshaun quite a bit, saying those things, I would think.
Right.
Does that change your perspective of the other players that were backing that, like say Miles Sanders backs him, and I don't know if Miles. Does that change your perspective at all in terms of, really wanting him, on your roster, or maybe you bump down peg? Does that happen for you? Because it seems like Djax is kind of, he's a best ball play anyway, and he's, maybe prime Deshaun Jackson. It would have had more of a ripple effect in the fantasy community, but those more kind of prime time players, those are the ones that we're really seeking to see how this impacts us. With like a Tyreek Hill, when that all happened, that was like, okay, you're picking a side. You're either fine with it, you're being complete, like you're aware of it and saying like, I'm against this, but I'm playing fantasy football to escape the real world, and like I'm not owning these players because I like them, I'm owning them because they score fantasy points. Or it's like, you know what, like whatever, innocent until proven guilty, and he's on my team and I love him.
Yes, and I mean, as human beings, a lot of football players, not to limit it to football players, like just a lot of people are awful. It's just my worldview. I think I've made it fairly certain and fairly obvious. I think a majority of human beings are just terrible. Our little industry, our little corner of the world, I don't think is, for whatever reason. I think for the most part, we're more intelligent than the general public at large. I think we're more analytical. I think the way we look at things lends itself to us being, I'd say, more intelligent. I don't really care. I'll just put it out there. I think, you can't take what we do in fantasy football, most of us, and not pretend that we don't apply that to our worldview. I just think that's just a fact. It's just how it is. I think as a general community, we're just largely, and there's some bad ones, obviously. I just think if I could find a way to poll, if I could find a way to quantify it, I think if the fantasy football community would be about, 75 to 80% really good people. Whereas the general public, I'd put it at about 15% is really good people. All that said, I'm not going to let it affect fantasy as far as players that I'm going to draft. Now, obviously, I'm going to have the bias in my head because I don't want to root for this guy. I don't want to root for Deshaun Jackson.
I hope nobody does.
But,
I said I hope nobody does, but there'll be some people who don't care.
Right. And, and I get that. And I'm not mad at anyone that's like, oh, well, I don't care. It's fantasy football. My goal is to win. And I get that. Sure. There's just certain things that people do get to the point where I'm just like, I can't ever root for this person. And, I can't draft someone that I can't root for because I can't, that's personal bias, and it's your own morality, because there's lines that I draw. Joe Mixon, I'll cheer for, because in my mind I go, this seemed to be a one-time occurrence. It was a horrible act. A terrible act. It was something, vile that he did, but it doesn't seem to be who he is as a person. Tyreek Hill, I go, all right, there's a lot here. There's a lot to unpack. There's the college thing where he tried to choke his pregnant girlfriend to death. There's also the thing where he probably broke his kid's arm, or he knows who did it and refused to, snitch on them, or whatever you want to call it. So to me, that point, it's like, all right, I can't root for this guy. Like, I know it's not cool to be like, I hope a guy gets injured. There's some people that are terrible human beings that if they were to get injured on the field, not life-threatening, let me preface that. If they were to get injured on the field, I don't know that I'd cheer for it, but I definitely wouldn't be like, oh, that's a shame. Carson Wentz, it is weird though. Like I said, I'll draw my lines. Carson Wentz is my favorite quarterback in the league. Largely because I was an Eagles fan up until 2 weeks ago, but also because I think he's a really good quarterback, and I think you can get a really good deal on him in most leagues. He didn't come out and say a thing about Deshaun Jackson. He's apparently boar hunting or something and living in a cave and didn't hear about it. So if I lived my credo to its max, I'd be like, well, I'm not drafting Carson Wentz. there's a limit you have to give yourself though, because at some point you'd end up going, I can only draft 6 players. Like I can't start any more than this. I just can't, and I get that, that's hypocritical, and people could call me a hypocrite. I don't really care. It's not something that I don't recognize. But like you said, it's also the player. Deshaun Jackson isn't a wide receiver 1. So it's easy for me to go, oh, I don't want him on my team. If Michael Thomas were to come out there, Devontae Adams were to come out and go, well, you know what? I think Jewish people are trying to control the world and dominate the world. I don't know how strong my convictions would be to go, I don't want Devontae Adams on my team now. I don't know.
Honestly, drop him a couple of spots below a few other players. Maybe you don't get him because you drop him 2 spots, 3 spots in the rankings, and you're never going to get that player.
You show him, you give him your rankings punishment of
right.
Well,
top 5.
But that's the other good thing about fantasy football is there's usually guys that are as good as a player that you don't like on a personal level. So you could go, you know what? Instead of Deshaun Jackson, let me trade Deshaun Jackson for Will Fuller. Both, have an injury history. One's an anti-Semite. All right, well, maybe I can take Will Fuller. And honestly, with Michael Thomas, hopefully he doesn't hear this and think that I'm saying he said these things, because he probably beat me up.
There's no way he's a listener.
He's very mean on Twitter. I don't know. I think he has alerts on anytime his name is mentioned anywhere to come challenge you. But if Michael Thomas, if Michael Thomas were to come out tomorrow with some nonsense out of his mouth, either anti-Semitic, bigoted, whatever. Find out that he eats kittens in his spare time. I could easily go, all right, well, I'm just going to flip him for Devontae Adams and a piece back. Right. But I don't want anyone to think like I'm doing this as some kind of like moral stand, because I'm not. You know what I mean? Like not in that realm. It's fantasy football. When I'll still root for Eagle players, that are on my fantasy team. It's just Deshaun Jackson isn't going to be one of them. That's all.
And I think the other important piece is that we don't know the half of it. We know what is reported of these people in the media. We know, what these guys say in interviews, maybe way back to their college days, depending on how long they've been in the league and how long they've had Twitter, and can kind of search their tweets and things. But like we talked about with Dr. Edwin Porras, we don't know probably 80 to 90% of what's going on with these guys, what these guys' views are. And so we're making these kind of, judgments like, oh, this guy's a great guy. Like, look at all the charitable things he does. And he could be a scumbag, in his own personal life, and we would have no idea. But, we take everything we see on Twitter and everything that the public is aware of as like, that is the truth. And that is what we must decide everything on. And, there's obviously some problems with that.
Yeah, and I mean, you look even in entertainment industry. Like I love John Cusack as an actor. I think he's like High Fidelity is probably one of my top 3 movies. And if you've seen the movie, you'll get that it's kind of funny that I gave it a number. But some of the shit that he tweets makes me go, oh, okay, well then I can't like this person as a human being, but I'll watch his movies still. You know what I mean? But again, it's that moral line. It's like, all right, well, did he actually kill someone like Ray Lewis? So I can't root for him, or did he say vile shit? And, I know everyone has their own moral line. So I would never be like, oh, I can't believe you drafted so-and-so after he did such and such, because, it's a game. And, I don't want to say it's weird when you look at it. I don't like when people profit off of people that are awful. Technically, I mean, that's kind of what we're doing in fantasy football, though, right? Like most of the leagues we play in, it's to win. It's to win some money. It's a nominal amount a lot of times, or maybe it's not if it's high stakes. So I don't know. That's one of those things I think you just examine on your own and you decide what's your moral compass? What are you comfortable with? Because I don't think there's a right or wrong answer with that. If you my co-host, Michael Sipes, he will not draft, and he does not want Joe Mixon on his team. He will not draft, and he will not trade for Kareem Hunt. And that's just because he wants to be able to personally root for these players. He wants to be like, hey, I'm happy that such and such did this. And though, even though, like Jeremy said, we don't know everything that people don't report, at least in those cases, well, we know what was reported about them.
Yeah.
So he's just like, well, I can't, and he's the type of guy, if he finds out later that, someone's eating kittens on a Saturday for the last 16 years, he'll go, well, I can't root for that guy either, so I don't want him on my team.
We got to find those kitten eaters.
Yeah, I keep going back to that because I feel like that's a safe thing everyone can get behind, right? Like everybody
was that a news item I missed? Is that something that's actually
I'm just saying everybody would be against that, I think.
Yeah,
like, I don't think anyone would
burying
come
them
out
and then mowing them up for
anti-kitten eating.
Right.
But,
like there's not one guy that would jump on Twitter and be like, well, you don't know what that kitten said to him. And you know what I mean? I don't think that would happen.
There's a few guys that probably do that, actually.
No, that's true.
Well, okay, I was just going to say, I think it's it's a pretty intriguing concept in general, the idea of drafting a player, and I think you stated it really well that like you're not choosing between Joe Mixon and DeAndre Washington. You're choosing between like Joe Mixon and Nick Chubb. So
Right.
you it's not like you have to go not pick this guy and then get some scrub because you didn't pick that other stud. If it just moves him down your rankings enough to where you're like, okay, I'm not going to love this guy as my running back one, and I might have negative emotions each week, like you were saying Michael Sibes has with, if he gets Joe Mixon and he ends up with him on his team as the number one, if the guy has a bad week, you might project that negativity, and now your team sucks, and I hate my team, and I hate that. And this is a hobby. You're supposed to have fun. So if that's going to happen, I think that's a really good decision to make, and just take that guy off your board or down your board, and it's totally fine.
Yeah, and I think that as
the more we talk about it and the more you
No, go ahead, Jane.
No. I was just going to say, as we talk through this, and this is why therapy is good. This is why when your doctor's like, no, I'm not just going to keep giving you drugs. You have to go to talk therapy. And you're like, but the drugs make me feel better. And he's like, no, or she. Let's not be sexist. My apologies. When she's like, you need to go to talk therapy. And you're like, just give me the drugs. And you don't understand why you're getting escorted out. It's probably more than that. But, the talk therapy helps you actually hear it. So as I say these things, I'm thinking, you know what? I could easily, if I really truly want to stick to my moral convictions, I can easily do things to make these moves. Now, the problem with fantasy football is I can't force people to trade with me. I can't say, no, you give me Devontae Adams for this player that said horrible things because I don't want him on my team. But when I'm drafting, I could always do, like you said, you know what? Well, instead of player A, I am just going to take player B because I do have them in the same tier. I do have them similar, I can't say the word tonight, ranked roughly the same. So if I want to be truly, truly convicted, that's something that I could actually do. Now, do I have the energy to do that now that I have 57 teams or whatever? Probably not. Probably not. I'm not going to lie to you. That's a lot of work to go through each one of them and be like, oh, well, this guy's a woman abuser. Oh, well, this guy's an anti-Semite. Like, oh, well, I heard this guy, used to set churches on fire. Like, that's a lot of work. I don't know if I have that in me.
Yeah, and I think that as dynasty players, the takeaway is kind of to, and especially as like really active kind of competitive players, it's to be honest with yourself and reflect on how these things impact you. Even if it's just a no change or a couple ranking slot down, it's important to know that information and how it's affecting you. Because if you don't know and you're wondering why you can't get this player and he goes off, and you're like, well, was it my rankings, whatever, and like being aware of these biases is really important. And I think even from the positive lens, like everybody jokes on Twitter when, somebody's working with the footwork king or somebody's, running routes on their, picket fence in the backyard and, making it look silly. We joke about these kind of workout hype pieces, but to some degree they have, at least a minimal effect in that, like, it's good to see that as his video instead of like passed out at the bar and like him smoking weed. Like, it's better than the alternative. And so not that that's going to boost him, 10 spots up your rankings, but it's also like, oh, like that guy's staying out of trouble. That guy's working hard this off season.
Yeah, which is, again, that's what we see what's being reported. We don't know what the hell he's doing when he leaves there.
Sure.
For all we know, he's going home and eating tacos. Although I don't know if tacos are particularly bad for you. I'll have to look into that. Okay, so he's eating chocolate cake. For all we know, he's leaving and he's just, that's why he's working so hard the next day, because he's like, I can't believe I ate all that chocolate cake again. Like, I'm not going to do this to myself anymore. Look, I just want, like me, on a personal level, I'm trying to lose weight. I've probably lost like, I don't know how much, whatever. So, I went for about an hour and a half walk last night, got my weighted vest on, feeling pretty good about myself. I took a shower and then, I ate 2 pieces of pizza at 11 o'clock at night. And I went, well, that wasn't very productive, but if you would have just seen the video of me walking earlier, you would have been like, oh, Shane's really putting in that work. But then you would have rankings. Right. And then, but if then you saw me eating the pizza video later, you're like, oh, well, what the hell? Come on, Shane, do better.
Trade him for a 4th.
Yeah. No, I'd take a 4th from me.
All right, this might be a good natural transition point over to Kyle.
All right. Well, I think it's time for me to scoot on down to the other end of the couch so you can take my place on the hot cushion. Today, I'm going to discuss your fantasy football footprint and follow that up with some questions. So please keep in mind that I'm going to be very direct, to the point, and brutally honest. The questions are not necessarily going to be easy. Is that okay?
No.
All right. We're going to do it anyway.
Everybody?
What does it matter? Like, why even ask? So you're like my therapist, man, like my real life therapist. He'll be like, oh, here are the side effects for your drugs. Or he'll say like, oh, well, what do you think if we boost your dosage? I'm like, why are you asking me? Like, I shouldn't have a choice in this matter. Like, just do what you're supposed to do. Like, I told you what's going on. You do what you're supposed to do now, buddy. Don't ask my opinion. I don't know. If I did, I'd be a doctor. I'm not a doctor. You know that because you have my chart. My chart does not say anything about calling me doctor. You haven't called me doctor once. It's all been Shane. So I'm not a doctor.
Doc, I've got an idea. What if we take the same medication dose and just mix it with a bunch of alcohol? Huh? I'm just spitballing, but you're the doctor.
Okay, before we get into the meat of this potato, I'd like to ask just a few things about you. So question number 1, what time of year do you enjoy Dynasty Fantasy Football the most?
Oh, this isn't multiple choice. Okay. Off season. I mean, all of us love the off season the most, right? Like I think 80% of us that play this game, it's because we grew up playing Madden franchise mode.
Right.
And everyone I've talked to was like, I'd get through the games, whatever. But then I'd get to the off season and I'd get to make trades and draft picks. That's what I love, the team building, the roster construction. If truth be told, I hate the slog of figuring out what guys to start every week and then realizing I picked the wrong guy again. But I'll never play best ball because off season for me.
I love that. You mentioned the Madden franchise mode. I kind of grew up on the NCAA games, and I love the college football game. And I'm the same way. It was like the recruiting of all your new college football players. That's just phenomenal. Yeah. I would make spreadsheets and chart my players and which things that John Castiglione doesn't really like it when I ask him if he is into winning college football programs versus the education that we offer at the University of Oklahoma. So yeah, I enjoyed it. But we already talked about this a little bit, but I'm gonna go ahead and ask it. Whereabouts you live in this world?
Philadelphia, in case anyone couldn't tell by my god awful Philly accent. Might be one of the ugliest accents in the world. It's just, Jesus, it is terrible. It is embarrassing. For a long time, I didn't want to do a podcast because I was like, have you heard me speak? And they're like, no, it's okay. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to get on there and people are going to vomit, but whatever. So Philly, I have this weird Philly, like I love Philly. Philly's a unique town. It's I know we all think our towns are unique, but unless you're from Philadelphia, you're wrong. You all just live in Mediocreville, USA. That pretty much, I could cut Oklahoma and put Maine in it and no one would notice, but Philly's got a flavor all its own, I think. We make up words and people respect it and they know that they have to accept it. And then they anoint some of us kings of those fake words. So it's pretty amazing.
And sometimes they means us.
Us.
Right.
Myself. Yeah.
I went to Philly one time for a concrete canoe competition nationals when I was at the University of Oklahoma. So that was back in 2003. that we went over there into Philly, stayed at Drexel University, and drank almost all the beer in Philly. I'm pretty sure we came close to it.
Yeah. No, but Philly's really awesome. I mean, I'm sure a lot of cities are like this, but it's just something about, you go from one street and it's one vibe, and then go 2 blocks, it's another vibe. Like, if you like parks, I think Philadelphia's got one of the biggest continuous parks in the country. If you like art, it's got an amazing art scene, and it's the city of murals. There's literally you just drive around and there's murals, not just graffiti, actual murals, like paint. And there's great club scenes. Just really whatever you're looking for, you could do it. But then there's also the northeast of the city, which is almost like its own little suburb, where if you're like, well, I want to live in the city, but not really. I tell look, I've never left Philly. I've left the city, to go other places. I've never left to live. I'm allowed out of the city in case anyone thinks I'm on house arrest. I honestly don't think that I'd want to live anywhere else.
That's pretty cool. All right. So obviously you've been playing fantasy football a long time. Have you ever initiated a total roster rebuild based on one player being injured or retiring early?
One player? No. Your team is shit if you're doing something like that. Now, I've blown up rosters because I thought it would just be fun to do. Or if I realized this team is shit. There's no reason I made the playoffs. I had the 11th highest scoring team. I shouldn't have made the playoffs. Right. But if your team is that bad that one player is going to make it or break it, that team's shit and you should blow it up. But I've never been in that situation.
Well, that's good too. There's, some negativity that can come in there with somebody who just maybe puts too much onus on one player, and that just defeats them, and they have that depression against their team. And, so I think it's good that you don't have that. But all right, I'm a beer guy, but when I don't drink beer, I choose whiskey. What is your favorite bourbon?
Does Jack Daniels count? I don't know what that is. Yeah, Jack Daniels. There you go. I've been a fan of Jack Daniels since about the age of 14. It was my first liquor drink. I drank beer for a little bit before that, 40s and whatnot. I got that Jack Daniels in me. I was like, and at 14, that's not a 14-year-old's drink. Although I guess technically, legally, nothing should be a 14-year-old's drink. But yeah, no, man, that's my drink. We'd go out to the clubs and my friends would pound beers and I'd pound Jack and Cokes just along with them, which was not a wise move, by the way. There's many stories where it ends up dude, we thought you died. And I'm like, no, I'm still here.
It's weird, but I'm alive. Yeah. All right. So your final intro question. What is your favorite thing about fantasy lacrosse?
Fantasy lacrosse. I like the skirts. Really like the skirts. Do they wear those still?
Maybe the girls. I doubt the boys do.
Well, they should. I mean, respect the game. If girls have to wear it, why don't boys?
I like it. I mean, they pretty much just massacre each other with the sticks in that sport. And, as a hockey player, growing up and playing in the 90s and 2000s when hockey was not really so much hockey as it was beating each other with your stick, I respect that about lacrosse.
I used to love, for Philly, because we've discussed that about 36 times now, but the Philadelphia Wings in the old National Lacrosse League, Indoor National Lacrosse League, won the title in the 80s, a couple times in a row. And it's funny because I'll never forget this. My substitute teacher one day was Tony Reich, who was a player on that team. But I used to love watching indoor lacrosse. It was just something about hey, he's hitting him with a stick. No one's going to call. This is really, he hit him with a stick again. Guys, he's hitting him with a stick and this is A-OK. Yeah, no, oh man. I never understood why indoor lacrosse didn't make it big.
That's just like anything. If it's not Olympics or, some sort of a big sanctioned event, they eventually kind of die on the vine.
Yeah.
But now...
hold on. So since this is a kind of brain-oriented podcast, female lacrosse or women's lacrosse is one of the most dangerous sports for concussions, by the way, if you didn't know. Even though you can't do, as Shane was describing, whack people with sticks. That's not allowed, but they don't wear headgear in lacrosse. They just wear the protective goggles. But I mean, you've probably held a lacrosse ball or seen one at some point.
Yeah.
And any of those shots, you get almost one of those a game, it seems like. And so I don't know why they're not wearing helmets. That's just
probably. I mean, they should probably wear like full body armor because those balls are made of brick, with I think yarn on the outside. I think it's yarn and brick, concrete, whatever you call brick, whatever goes into brick. I don't know. I think brick is descriptive enough. Yeah, I'm surprised more people don't die playing lacrosse. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Yeah, brick is actually just a cement and water partial sand mix. So for those other civil engineers out there, that's what a brick is.
And we're just building this conversation down.
Actually, the CMU bricks are that way, but that's what I figured you would build a ball out of. Now it's time for my hard-hitting analysis and drama-laden questions. Are you ready?
Do I have a choice?
No. Question number one.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
Shane, we traded in the Dynasty Fantasy Eliminator run by John Bosch. The trade was a small amount of auction cash and Alexander Madison for Darius Geis. Likely, you do not remember which side of the trade you were on, as this is the Dow of Shane. If we were to make this trade again today, what is the highest point in South America?
Highest point in South America? Are we talking like mountain range?
Yes.
Then I've literally no idea. But if we were literally talking the closest point to North America, still wouldn't have an idea. So I'm just
how does that help?
I'm going to go with Mount Planteña.
Yeah, that's pretty much not anywhere close, but it's Aconcagua, part of the Andes Mountains in Argentina.
Argentina. Yeah, that was my next guess.
Right.
Yeah.
It was close, though. You're close. No points awarded. But
Planteña is in Argentina, isn't it?
Planteña?
That's a banana, isn't it? Isn't it just
close to it?
Is this a real mountain? Did I just?
No, I don't know. I heard you say something related to plantain, and so I went.
Yeah, I appreciate you trying to clean that up, but no. If anyone's listening, I had no idea. Geography is clearly not my strength. So
all right,
this is going well.
That definitely will be the only geography-related question that I ask you. Question number 2. When answering my hard-hitting questions, it is very difficult to be right. Just right now, I was thinking of saying something that would make this question outright problematic for you. You are probably getting finger cramps from the quantity of times you are currently swiping right. What is the side of the center that the right defensive end is lined up?
See, I'm a diagram guy. Side of the center. So which side is he on? Like the right defensive end. Left tackle. Left
is correct.
Left, yes.
All right, you didn't fall for the fact that I said right about 5 times during that question. You still
no. See, I'm never mind. I won't get into it, but I've had very many word problem questions, so I'm okay with those. I just have to draw things, very visual. Go ahead. I'm winning, by the way.
That's good. You've got a point.
1 for 2.
Better. I think you might be second all time now.
Not bad.
Not bad. Question number 3. Shane, you have some kids. Rich has a few. I have one, and Jeremy has a dog. Often dogs are like children, as you must take them outside a few times a day so they can urinate. When you take a dog out too long, you get a hot dog, but not a hot dog you cook or a hot dog tight end Jared cook, because that dog is one Jeremy wouldn't bite. A Philly cheesesteak is a drastically overrated meal, so what is the definition of a philomath?
Let's see. So philomath, yeah, I can't even pretend to have any freaking clue at all. And my mic is too close to my keyboard, so I'm not even going to try to look it up. But let's see. It's something Greek. It's Greek. True. I know that, as most words that originated from the Greek. Philadelphia, brotherly, hating your brother.
It's so close. It's a lover of learning.
God damn it, that's not even close.
Yeah, you were just right there.
Yeah, so close.
Question number 4. In the movie The Matrix, there was a scene where Keanu Reeves was fairly new to entering the made-up world called The Matrix. He walks by a woman wearing a red dress who is very easy to look at. Keanu even turns his head to get a second look, only to find out that the lady is now a middle-aged male in a business suit. Women turning into men upon second glance is a common occurrence in the online dating apps. Can you name the actor who played boxer Rocky Balboa?
Sylvester Stallone.
Oh, I'm sorry. The answer is yes. You obviously know who the actor is who played Rocky Balboa. I just wanted to know if you could name him.
That is perfect. I love that.
So no, you got that wrong.
Oh, that was maybe the best thing I've ever heard in my life.
Well, Shane, thank you for your time. I appreciate your candid and truthful answers and my insightful and hard-hitting analysis. All right. Well, thank you for taking your place on the hot cushion. That's always a lot of fun for me. I like writing those, and it's usually fun for the guests too. So,
Put up a point. Not bad.
I'm not even gonna lie to you, man. Like I was really trying hard. I'm like, listen, pay attention. Like I put my phone down and all. I'm like, pay attention. You can do this.
I noticed that it was clear that you had listened to the Tyler episode because you knew a little bit of what was coming, but you can only prepare so much.
Yeah, I mean, look, eventually he's gonna ask the question, and if you flat out just don't know the answer, not anything you can do.
True.
Yeah, that's why, like I said, I keep bringing up John Bosch. I mean, I asked a couple of questions that were in his wheelhouse, but some were trick, and that he got 3 of those was pretty outrageous.
You know, his brain is built that way from game night, though. You know what I mean? Like when they do the name game, I think Tyler might have talked about this last week. I have no idea what the hell it is.
I've never got one.
I went on and I think I was giving up. Like, just please stop. Like, don't do this anymore. Yeah, I've never. I'm like, and I always sit there and like, there's a lot of times after it, I'll even still not understand. I'm like, wait, that doesn't. Hold on, I need to write this down. It doesn't make sense. I don't understand.
That's funny. Jeremy?
I'm gonna take the reins back here.
Nice.
So we are gonna play the exercise I was alluding to that I'm calling John of the Dead. So these guys, yes, thank you for providing that, Shane. These guys have basically been left for dead or have trended in that direction by the Dynasty community, respective to where they were maybe a few years ago or even just a year ago. So I'm going to describe these players to you with either kind of a tweet or a comment or some sort of description. And I want you to tell me whether he's dead or if today is the John of the Dead and he will rise again. Okay? So I'm going to let both of you guys kind of go through this exercise and make some guesses. And what I want you to do is kind of add some reasoning as to why you either don't want that player or want that player just based on that description. And you can even kind of guess who that player might be. There's no points with this. It's really just an exercise to think through, your reaction to the description and what your thought process is. Just whatever you're thinking, think it out loud. Make it messy. Make it real. Okay.
Okay. I think I can handle
All right.
Breasts.
So the first one is, before getting injured, he was averaging 17 points per game at the receiver position.
That's the whole clue?
That's the whole clue.
Jeez.
So what's going through your mind right now, other than that's the whole clue? What's the first name or two that pops in your mind?
That could have been, well, it wasn't Deshaun Jackson, even though we talked about him today, because he actually dropped like a 30 or 40 point game on someone. Now I'm thinking of a guy that's always injured, or at least I have the thought that is always injured, but I know it wasn't Brandon Cooks.
Sammy Watkins got like 50 points in week 1 and then got injured in week 3 or 4, something like that. So maybe it's the Sammy Watkins where he just had one good week the entire season.
Like when in doubt, when talking about an injured wide receiver, let's go with Will Fuller.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So what if I were to extend this clue and say that he didn't play last year?
Boy, yeah, I'm terrible at this. I think I want Kyle's fake questions again. Didn't play last year. Des Bryant.
Ooh, yeah. Well, he didn't have any points before he got injured because he got injured in training camp with the New Orleans Saints. But, oh, man. Yeah, so I guess...
If you don't have a guess, Kyle, it's, there is really a point game, but I'm going to say the decision that I'm going to have you guys make each time is: do you want this player or not? Do you think he's dead, or is there?
We get all the clues
potential for a
before.
rise? That's it.
So we get all
minimal
That's
clues.
it?
Yep.
Okay, so we
minimal
get the 2
on
clues. Now we have to choose whether we want this guy on our team or whether we're cutting him.
So and I'm gonna use some psychology here. I think you're purposely underselling him, accentuating the bad. Oh, he didn't play last year, so I'm gonna buy him. I'm gonna say he's still alive.
I'm with you. I'm going to buy him too because I just feel like he was trying to get us on this first one, and I'm playing the Jeremy game where he's trying to trick me because he's my doctor.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you that the community's down on these guys. So you both just bought one AJ Green.
Ooh,
Look,
nice. Yeah.
guys, we did
Got
good.
some life in
Yeah,
it?
nice. We win.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's
Where's
move
the
on.
applause thing? We don't get the applause thing for that.
We'll fix it in post.
Jesus.
All right, let's move on to our second player. So this is a top 10 player, this player is in the most 100-plus yard receiving game since 2015.
5 years. Nope. No, it's not. Yeah, I count it. And if anyone heard that, I definitely count it using my fingers.
That's what I asked you to do. Do this process out loud so the listeners can.
So he could have really front loaded those years in 2015 and 16 and 17. Really,
Right.
could be Larry Fitzgerald for all I know.
There's not that. That's one of those stats that's kind of you'd think that a lot of the big name receivers have just 16 weeks a year that are over 100 yards, but that mark doesn't really happen as much as you think. So, it's a big cluster of the players who get that because, you also get some of the second-rate guys after somebody gets injured may have 4 or 5 weeks in a row where they have it, but that's the only relevance they have for 2 or 3 years.
All right, I'm going to use some skills of deduction here. You went back to 2015. I'm guessing that was his rookie season, since that's the arbitrary cutoff you used, which would have made him at oldest, if he was Calvin Ridley-ish, 24, meaning he's 29, which means he still has at least 2 more years before he falls off the age cliff, so I'll buy him.
We get another clue, or is this?
Yeah, I'll throw one more. He has a new QB this year. Do you still want to buy Shane?
Michael Evans. Yes, I do. I have no idea if it's Michael Evans.
Kyle?
Not at all.
Yeah, I mean, that could be Evans, and I think I'm going to go ahead and buy it as well.
Okay. You both just bought T.Y. Hilton.
I'm good with that.
What T.Y. Hilton? You keep him.
So I don't know if you guys are a group here or not, but it's a group exercise at least. So we'll say that you guys are co-managing this team, and Kyle's happy with both his selections, and Shane
pretty happy.
wants to put T.Y. Hilton on the block already.
Yeah, he's on sale right now. If anyone wants,
He might even Matt Barkley him and just dump him already.
Just dump it.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I mean, Phillip Rivers might aim for Michael Pittman and accidentally throw to Hilton.
Well, that's a problem though.
I don't know.
I don't think Phillip Rivers can reach T.Y. Hilton anymore. I don't think he's got the arm.
You could see maybe one Keenan Allen type just force feed season.
This is true.
Not a whole lot else on that offense.
Yeah,
so.
I agree. To Paris Campbell.
We'll see. All right. Player number 3. A washed out year has everyone forgetting his recent draft capital.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got distracted by something on Twitter. What was that?
A washed out year. Maybe that's a Freudian slip. We'll see. A washed out year has everyone forgetting his recent draft capital.
Oh, N'Keal Harry. It's got to be N'Keal Harry.
He loves him some Harry.
That could literally be anyone. But okay, should we get another clue, Kyle?
We definitely should. What I'm thinking right now is, a few of those players that I know Jeremy likes, which is probably dead wrong because he usually tricks me and throws in other players that he doesn't love so that the guest has an equal shot. But, it's got me thinking that same thing. N'Keal Harry, Corey Davis, David Montgomery, those kind of players.
Your second clue is also a new QB.
I'm still thinking it's N'Keal Harry.
Yeah.
Even if it weren't, I'm assuming the
So you want
cost.
to buy this guy?
Yeah, the cost is so low that, I'm a buyer.
if he has one washed up season or washed out season or however we're going to word it, like if you've got high draft capital.
I said recent draft capital. Recent could be arbitrary.
Yeah.
Recent. I mean, if you really want to get into, that's a fun topic. I hope you guys tackle one day is the use of language and the subjective nature of it. So yeah, just chalk that up for one of these weeks. I'm still buying.
Buying too.
Buying? All right.
I'm buying.
You both bought N'Keal Harry.
Oh, look at
Love
that.
Expected.
Nailed it.
All right. We'll move on to player 4 now. The fall from the first round of Dynasty startups has been steep. His injuries haven't really been that bad.
All right, so we got the injury guy, which, you might have multiple injuries. This could be like a Darius Geis, right? Somebody who he was right up there in the ranks and then hasn't. I mean, one of his injuries was pretty normal, but it was the infection afterwards that was a problem.
Not sure anybody had him in the first round of Dynasty startups outside of you, though.
He was second
Geis?
overall pick, man.
Wait, I'm sorry.
In startups.
Who did you get? Startups.
Oh, startups.
Not
I'm sorry.
rookie drafts.
Yeah, no. Good Lord. Please don't draft Darius Geis was never. Either way, I'm buying still. Man, I love all these discounted players.
I know. Well, that's kind of the point of this exercise is the community is down on a lot of these players. And
I buy them all day. People just throw them away like they have no shot. Like, all right, well, part of the problem is you're like, oh, well, if it is Darius Geis, Darius Geis is never going to be a running back 1. Well, that's fine. I don't need him to be because I just need a guy that, at his price point that can give me RB2 weeks here and there. And maybe if he spikes an RB1 week, that's fine. But so I'm buying.
Do you want another clue or do you just want to buy?
Yeah, I like these clues. You put a lot of work into these. So
All
right.
clues.
So the second clue is it's not out of the realm of possibility that he is his wide receiver 1 as a running back. His team's wide receiver 1 as a running back.
Could still be Geis. I mean, he's an okay receiver, but I don't think he's going to be the team's.
Wait, are we saying the team's running back could be the wide receiver 1?
Correct.
So Christian McCaffrey or Saquon
Outside
Barkley.
shot. So it's and again, this is a guy that people are down on. So it's not Barkley or CMC. And Kyle, it's not Geis. He was never in the first round of startups.
Oh no, I was trying to think of the team based off the clue, but I misunderstood.
Kyle's not thinking anything other than.
So it's not Dare Agumbawale.
I am going to buy, and I still will buy.
You want to buy him? Kyle buying?
If you got potential, I'm buying.
All right, you have bought David Johnson.
Oh,
There you go. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, it might not last for us for 3 years, but for maybe this year, he could be pegged in RB1.
Yeah, and that's my bias right there. Is going, what's he really going to do? Like, dude, he could give you an RBT season for 1 year. Like, that's not bad. There's those players that literally never hit that level that you would kill for. Like David Montgomery's another guy that falls into that category where, I was so hyped on him coming out of college. I'm like, oh, he's going to be really good. He's going to be really good. We got the NFL, and I'm like, oh, he's super average. But you know what? Does it matter if he's going to get 300 and whatever touches or 300 touches? No, he's going to be an RB2. Who cares if he averages 3.9 yards per carry?
When you've got a quarterback who's not being successful for a season, the way the teams can load up the box and rush blitz and all those different types of things, you don't have a lot of room to really show what you're doing. If they can spread that offense out a little bit more, and some games they did. Some games David looked really good. Just wasn't every play, every game.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing with David Johnson is that you can be like, oh, well, it's because he's 27 or 8 or whatever he is now. But then you bring up David Montgomery, you bring up a James Conner. Like, these are all guys that, were valued a whole lot more, and you can still maybe get an RB2 season out of them for a whole lot less. And those are the kind of guys I'm targeting in on contenders. So,
yeah, for sure.
All right.
I was super excited, by the way, about that Henry contract. I've got so much Henry. It's like, that was greatness.
Get off of second contract RBs. Your daily reminder.
Here's my thing, man, and this is kind of I've got this working theory that eventually I'm going to have to put to paper. And paper kids, for any of the youngins listening, when the olden folk, when I was a child, used to write, writing is like typing. Let me just say that. So writing equals typing, or whatever y'all call it now, texting. I don't know. We used to get these things that were called books, and you would get this instrument that had ink in it and write things down. Yeah. Yeah. I don't remember what my original point was. I have literally no idea where that point was going.
I got into a conversation on Twitter here because somebody posted something that says you're an OG 100 if you know what the old combined TV and VCR with like the 7-inch screen.
Oh yeah.
You're one of those and you ever played a video game on it, you're like a video game OG. And I'm like, well, yeah.
You were a baller. I mean, the only problem is when the VCR broke and you'd have to buy a whole new one because you don't have a separate VCR. You can't, you know what I mean? So you got to throw out the TV. Right. And the TV works fine, but you're like, well, sorry, you got to go, buddy.
But I was saying that my favorite part about it was those things were like 35 pounds. It was like 7-inch TV. And you're like, oh, this is nice. I can just pick it up and move it anywhere I want.
I just ordered, because I'm getting ready to move. So I just ordered a new television, 43 inches, and the thing's like 6 pounds.
I know.
43-inch television, even 10 years ago, like you weren't moving it. Like when you were moving, you'd think about just leaving it behind. Like, do I really need this television? No, I'm leaving it here.
All right, let's finish up with our last one here.
Ooh, we got another one.
We have one more.
This up.
I did. All right.
How are our team so far? Are we doing pretty good?
Yeah, I'd say so. You bought some good players.
I like these players.
Was not happy with T.Y. Hilton, but
going to give us Dante Pettis.
How do you feel? Being psychological. I said, how do you feel?
Talking to me?
No, Kyle.
Oh.
He was asking to your advice how you're doing. Like, how do you feel that you're doing?
Yeah, I feel pretty good.
Let's play it.
I mean, I like all these players.
Do you think this is working? Well, I haven't killed anyone, Doc. Have I? Have I? No.
I'm sailing.
Well, right. It's going pretty well, Doc. I joke. I've never been to therapy at all this week. Oh, that's a lie. Never mind. Sorry.
It's not Thursday, or it's not Friday yet.
It's not Friday. All right, last player.
Okay.
Some might misspeak and call him a John, but it's hard to find anyone that's on him anymore, especially after a new rookie has been added to his wide receiver group.
Could be Michael Gallup. That could be Michael Gallup. That would be the real opposite of a John because it's a Dallas player. There's CD Lamb there.
Ooh, Dallas players, so good, so good.
We're gonna need another clue anyway because you worked hard on these clues. But I'm leaning at Gallup. But I'm also leaning. I'm already gonna buy him anyway because anytime someone says, "Oh, the rookie's gonna come in," you're like, "Dude, the rookie is not gonna just supplant this dude. Like it doesn't happen that often. Stop it. Go away."
Maybe this is AJ Green again, and we're talking about Higgins coming in.
I was gonna say. I kind of wish I altered this clue to fit T.Y. Hilton again so that I can make Shane buy him twice.
You can't make us buy the same player twice. You can't. It's against the rules.
It's a 2-copy league.
Yeah, that's trickery. I will not accept trickery from my therapist. I will call my HMO and say no.
I have a second clue, but it's too obvious, so I'm going to make you guys decide.
Fine, then I'm buying.
I'm buying. Of course I'm buying.
All right.
I got all kinds of draft capital.
The misspeak and call him a John was because his initials kind of look like that, and you just bought JJ Whiteside.
Nice. I'm buying him.
Whiteside.
I am buying him.
Might get like a 4th or 5th round pick back for that, you know? I mean, if you're buying for that, heck yeah.
Here's my thing with JJ, right? Obviously he had about as bad of a year that you can have as a rookie that actually got playing time too and like was forced into playing time. He sucked. It was his rookie year. You know what I mean? I know the data doesn't suggest that rookies that perform that poorly with that high of draft capital are ever going to be anything. And adding Jalen Reagor to the mix probably, in most people's eyes doesn't help him, but they play different positions. like to me, if anything, that helps him out. You know what I mean? They didn't draft, another guy to take his place directly. They just added a guy to take Deshaun Jackson's place once, he moves on next year, since he's clearly going to remain on the team in 2020.
Oh, and that's a good point too. And the other thing they don't talk about is wide receiver is a difficult position to learn from college to pros, and he had to play the X and the Y and the Z. So that's hard. That's 3 positions. That's not even one wide receiver position. They're in the pros. They're literally 3 different spots.
And it's weird that they did that. I will say this, because there's nothing about him that makes me think he's an outside burner. Well, not an outside, but he's not Deshaun Jackson. That's not what I want him for. He was supposed to be the Alshon Jeffrey replacement. So just play him at that position, because guess what? Alshon Jeffrey missed a bunch of games. You could have just left him in that position, but whatever. We'll see how it is this year, because Jeffrey doesn't look like he's going to be able to start the year. Assuming that it starts, he won't be able to start it on time.
Yeah, and I think that kind of Alshon Jeffrey Jr. role was what I don't think Doug Peterson was envisioning originally, but I think his hand got forced a little bit and was just plugging him in wherever people kept getting hurt, and then it was it may have just kind of slowed his development a little bit to move him around so much, and rather than just be like, hey, go win this jump ball a few times and it will be good.
Right.
J-Jaw or Jalen Hurd?
Man, I loved Hurd coming out, but I think they've already moved on.
You think?
Man.
He was injured all last year.
He was, but Debo
won't play a game at all because he's injured and he's injury prone and broken foot.
Jones fracture.
Yeah, I mean the problem is Jalen Hurd is probably even going to be say Debo doesn't play. He's still behind Brandon. I pronounce this incorrectly all the time. Ayuk.
That's pretty close.
All right. And both of those guys are behind George Kittle by a lot.
Yeah.
And Dante Pettis. Maybe Dante Pettis finally learned whatever it is that Kyle Shanahan was trying to teach him last year. I don't know. And maybe he'll let him play this year. Who knows? And obviously, again, different positions. Jalen Hurd, I would assume, isn't your outside receiver since he's 6'4", 220.
Shanahan needs to stop teaching him calculus and teach him the playbook.
Yeah. So
I think there's the scare. Here's one for you that you can work with me on later on, Jeremy. Players like Pettis that end up in the doghouse with a coach, I'm much more wary of than the player who has the potential. Because I think Pettis is a really good football player, and he was really good in college, and I think he's shown some flashes in the pros. And I'm much less likely to take him or keep him on a team than I am that player who had that injured season the first year or maybe the first couple of years but showed some flashes. I'd much rather keep a Geis or a Hurd that the coaches still might like. When you get into the doghouse with coaches, that's just scary to me.
So that moves the needle for you. Do you, if a piece comes out, talk like a coach quote that's like, no, I still love this guy. Does that help you? If they said that about Pettis, would you be more in on him?
It's kind of proof is in the pudding. If they say, no, we love this guy, and but meanwhile, you hear the other things at practice, he's carrying everybody's equipment and all the other stuff. You got to look at it more as an encompassing thing. But in that case, in Pettis's case, they were saying the opposite. The coach is like, well, if he wants to learn how to practice, then we might get him some playing time. Right. I don't know about.
And that's why, and that's why I was flipping it. And just like you had an agenda to ask Shane the Hurd Arcega-Whiteside question, because Kyle and I started co-owning a team this year, and we had that decision. I was like, don't draft Hurd. I want Arcega-Whiteside in the 19th round or whatever.
It was our 10th wide receiver on a team that is so stacked at wide receiver. There's no way we ever fill a flex spot with this guy. I mean, it's just
such an irrelevant debate that has become a debate. But
I mean, I like Jalen Hurd coming out of college a lot. I just think he was really impressive, and the fact that he kept Alvin Kamara off the field when he was a running back. So obviously he's versatile, and Shanahan likes those guys. It's just that, they keep adding those guys to that mix already. They're like, hey, we got Debo, and now we got Ayuk, and now, and Jalen Hurd is still there. It's just, I don't know. I just don't see it as being high enough of a passing offense where it's going to be able to keep Kittle fed and Ayuk fed and Debo fed whenever he comes back, and Jalen Hurd. Eagles offense, they love throwing the ball. Like I don't, they haven't been outside the top. I think it's 13 or 14 since Doug Peterson's been here. And most years they're in the top 9 and a couple times in the top 7. Like they're that not new school, but they play the correct way. They throw to win, and then to get ahead, excuse me, and they run when they're ahead. That's the way you're supposed to, which means that they're going to throw the ball generally 30 plus times a game. Whereas I think if Kyle Shanahan had his druthers, he'd throw the ball 15 times a game, and 10 of those would go to George Kittle, which I can't even argue with, because I think that's an excellent plan with Jimmy Garoppolo as your quarterback.
I almost look at it like, okay, well, his running back skills, they don't mind using the wide receivers to run the ball. And he's one of those weird body types and weird guy. I mean, he played running back at 6'5". I mean, nobody does that. It's ridiculous. And he excelled. Yeah. And so, he's a pass catcher, but is he maybe closer to, to Kittle than he is to Debo, who's closer to 6 foot?
I wish there was anything coming out ever about, and there never was, that, hey, we might use Jalen Hurd as a running back too. Like, he might get 5 carries a game, and he might get, 6 targets a game, and like just using him as this versatile chess piece, which maybe Shanahan plans on doing, but it doesn't feel like it, because there was never any of that coach speak saying it, at least not that I recall.
I've heard some stuff of that nature. I don't know that it came from the coach. If not from beat writers, it might have been just beat writers saying stuff like that.
Kyle, do you hear voices often?
Yeah. If they've noticed it in practice, then that's, I'll take that any day of the week over, you know what I mean? If they saw that he was lining up at the running back or the H-back position, then I'd be very intrigued. Now that we're playing video football, I don't really know how that works, like where he lines up on the Zoom screen. We'll have to find out. Because he could be, he could play. At one point, he was going to be a tight end. When he originally left Tennessee, he was going somewhere to be a tight end, and then the next thing you know, he was a wide receiver. I'm sure there were steps along the way. Next thing I knew, he was a wide receiver. He was
Denzel Mims. Basically Denzel Mims was his protege. Basically, you got Mims coming from Baylor right after Hurd was one of the main targets there.
Yeah, and he
transition to go from running back and excelling to just straight almost 1,000-yard receiver. To me, he may not pan out, but the dude is so good at football, and that just intrigues me.
Yeah, and I think but we fall for these guys all the time, where we're like, oh, you could use him in so many different ways.
And nobody does.
No. And then NFL coaches are like, yeah, I could, but I'm not going to. He's going to be, I forget there was a guy that the Eagles many years ago signed from the Texans, Casey maybe, who he was going to be the jack of all trades when you got here. And you're like, oh, he had 20 receptions with them and he had 80 carries and he can do it all. And then he got to Philadelphia and it was like, yeah, he has 14 receptions, 3 carries, and we're cutting him the next year. And that seems to be the more likely outcome with these gadget guys that we want to be a thing.
Yeah, it's the Cordell Patterson, the Tavon Austin, you want that they can do all these things, but they can't do one thing well enough to make a difference for us.
To get on the fantasy radar.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. I'm looking over there at the therapist, and he's tapping his watch and putting away his notebook, and looks like the clock is about to strike 9. So, Jeremy, mind reminding us who that we have on our show tonight?
Yeah. Go follow Shane at Shane is the worst. The John King. Now I think he's just like a bunch of parentheses with Shane in the middle. I don't know if they're blocking out the haters or what it is, but Shane, tell us where we can find some of your work, and then we'll get out of here.
So just real quick though, so the Echoes thing,
yes.
That's so the alt-right, which is the cleaned up way to say fucking skinhead Nazi pieces of shit, would often try to identify Jewish media members and other people like that by putting parentheses around their name.
Really?
Yeah. So what a lot of Jewish people did, and then non-Jewish people in solidarity did, is said, well, all right, well, fuck you. We'll all put Echoes around our names. So you don't know who it is. It's all of us, you fucks. And just, for me, obviously I'm pretty loud about how I feel about equality and things like that. And my children are Jewish, so I don't abide any anti-Semitism. If you're unsure of my feelings on it, just check out my tweet from the other day on it.
Well, Shane, that's pretty awesome. I didn't or mean to make light of it. But,
No.
But really, you are blocking out the haters with it. So I love it.
And that's kind of the thing is it's like, okay, well, they use this to identify us in a negative way. So we're going to say, fuck you. This is how we identify. And like I said, a lot of people that were allies are like, well, you know what? I like that. I'm going to do it too. So you can't tell who is who. And generally, I mean, neo-Nazis, skinheads are fucking stupid anyway. So it's pretty easy to confuse them. And I'm sorry to go on that rant, but no, it was at the end of your show, so hopefully, if it bothered anyone, they can fast forward it. What was I doing? I was saying where I'm at. Is that what I was doing? I have no idea now. Oh, I'm sorry.
Find your tweets on Twitter, but where can we find?
So Dynasty League Football lets me write for them. Yeah, I also host the co-host. Co-host is a strong word. Michael Sipes hosts the show. Jeremy Browen also helps him host the show, and then I kind of just show up and spew nonsense on the Dynasty Trades HQ. That's like, my baby. And then my new baby, and I don't even know if I want to say it because he didn't mention it on the last show he was on, but whatever. Manic and Chill YouTube show on the Dynasty League Football YouTube channel with my dude Scott Connor, who's really one of the sharpest dudes in the game. That's it, really. Oh, and then once a month I go on Super Flexible podcast with my buddy Swags, and we make fun of trades. Wait, let me rephrase that. We dive into trades that are maybe not good trades and give our opinions on the matter and such.
Did you ever dig into? I saw you tweet you were going to talk about some Miles Sanders trades, and I moved Miles Sanders for one of the ones that you were considering talking about. I didn't listen to the episode, but it was Miles Sanders for Juju, Mims, and
you won.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Look, I love Sanders.
Not that I care about what people think about my trades, but I was curious as a Miles Sanders guy if you.
We all care. We all care a little bit. We're all a little bit narcissists.
Yeah, I was going to throw the computer if not. But.
And then just the last thing, it's Scott Fish season, so that you kind of, if you weren't already in the mood to donate to some kind of charity, and if you can afford to, because I understand times are really hard out there for a lot of people. But if you can afford to, just think about giving to some charities, and especially like I said, times are really hard for people right now. Food banks, homeless shelters, things like that. But really, giving to any charity is a good thing. So just think about doing that.
Yeah, we just watched a lot of the mental health podathon that the guys at FF Face Off did.
Right.
That, I don't know if anybody is it wasn't as big of an ordeal as the Scott Fishbowl podathon, and they didn't quite make it to that kind of a number. This was their first year, but that podathon was outright amazing.
Yeah, those guys kicked ass too. It didn't reach the heights as a SFB yet, podathon, but that's something I definitely can see, and that's an amazing thing that they did, and that's part of the reason that I say that the fantasy football community is generally better than the general public, or it just is, doing things like that. And that is really awesome. And I'm pretty sure if you just check out maybe Anthony's or Michael's Twitter handle, I'm sure you could find a way to donate still. I'm sure they wouldn't turn down any donations.
All right. So, we'll wrap it up. I see that Jeremy's got some guests in his room, so
I'm in their home, so it's okay. But thanks again, Shane, for joining us. Thanks for all that you do with advocacy, activism, your charitable donations, everything. Just, you're speaking what all of us are thinking. And so we really, even the F-bombs and all that, we appreciate it. So thanks again for spending some time with us tonight. Follow us on Twitter at Dynasty Self Help. Follow our wonderful producer, at Streaming Rich, our troubled co-host Kyle at Dogleg Brewer, and I'm at Jared Schwob, and we'll see you next time.
All right.
Thanks.
I gotta just feel really bad because I've been down in water this whole time.
I can hop off. I don't know if Kyle's gonna hang, but I'm getting kicked out of here. So thanks again.
Thanks, guys. I gotta go to the bathroom before I pee myself.
All right. Good luck, Shane.
Thanks.
Comes out okay.
You guys good if I hop off?
Yeah. Have a good night, guys.
Oh goddamn, leave meeting, bitch! I hate this fucking thing.
Please leave that in.
I hope
It does make you confirm you want to hang up the phone like 7 times. I'll give him that.
I hope that
End
was
meeting?
clean
Yes,
and we
end
weren't
meeting.
talking over it. That's a great clip. We're joined by Shane. God damn it, meeting closed fucking window. I hate this. That would be a really fun promo.
Yeah, that might be the intro. Yeah.
That
There's
was a
some
good show.
great video. Yeah, it was good. He's a cool guy.
Yeah, I like Shane a lot.
He's
kinda-
super woke.
He's kind of calm today. Sometimes he can be like wild and like driving everybody, and but you know, like that was kind of what I was telling Jeremy. Like, you know, maybe it ends up just being like, you know, he treated it that way. It was